It's kind of funny how a single day's news can tell you a much bigger story. And today, if you really look at what happened, one powerful theme just jumps right out: high stakes gambles. I'm talking about everything from the most personal, desperate decisions, all the way to the moves that shape our entire nation and even the global economy. It feels like everyone everywhere is placing some kind of bet. All right, so let's dive right in and unpack this. Okay, first up, just look at this number: negative 850. That's the drop in the Sensex today. And that's not just a number on a screen, right? It's basically a massive collective bet that things are heading south. And it's all being driven by jitters from halfway across the world. We're talking billions of rupees, won or lost, based on nothing more than a single day's feeling. And then there's this, a truly tragic story coming out of Delhi. A life was lost, a murder. And according to the police, this wasn't some random act of violence. No, they say it's the brutal, direct consequence of a desperate financial gamble. A bet that started on an app and then just spiraled into horrific, real-world violence. And rounding it all out, we have a truly monumental bet. A bet on the entire future of the country. A new set of laws was introduced in Parliament today that is designed to fundamentally reshape our democracy. Now, this is a political gamble that we won't see the results of for years, maybe even a decade. But the dice, they've just been rolled. So you see, three totally different stories, but all tied together by this one theme. Let's break them down. All right, so let's start at the most intimate, the most human level, the personal gamble. We're going to dive into the world of online gaming, a place where that line between just having fun and some really high-risk behavior is getting dangerously blurry. So here's the backdrop. This isn't some niche hobby anymore. The online gaming market in India has just exploded. We're talking about hundreds of millions of users. It's gotten so huge, so fast, that the government has finally decided to step in. And just today, they notified a brand new set of rules to try and, get a handle on the whole thing. And these new rules, well, they introduced some pretty revealing official language. The government now has a formal definition for these games. They're called an online money game, or OMG. Yeah, OMG. It's such a bureaucratic, almost sterile term for something that, as we're about to see, can have an incredibly profound and often devastating human impact. Okay, so you have that bureaucratic definition on one hand, and on the other, you have this quote from the Delhi police. This is the stark reality of what we're talking about. A crime, and I'm quoting here, driven largely by financial distress stemming from online gambling losses. The virtual game leading to a devastating real-world consequence. There's no hiding from that. So what does that kind of pressure actually look like in real numbers? Well, according to the police, the accused was in debt to the tune of 7 lakh rupees. Just think about that number. For him, that must have felt like an impossible hole to climb out of. A hole that, in his mind, could only be fixed with one final, desperate, and ultimately tragic bet. But as profound as this personal gamble is, it's really just one piece of a much, much larger puzzle of risk that we're all a part of. Okay, so now I want you to zoom out with me. We're going from the individual to the global, because while that was a conscious, desperate bet made by just one person, the truth is we're all caught up in these massive gambles being made on the world stage, and these are the ones that are directly hitting the money in all of our pockets. And this chart right here, it just perfectly illustrates the impact. You can see that sharp, steep drop in the Sensex today, that 850-point fall. It's not just some abstract number on a news channel. It represents a huge loss of real wealth for investors, and it happened in just a matter of hours. It was a massive, widespread bet against the market stability. So the big question is why? Why did this happen today? And the answer is, it wasn't about one bad company or a local issue. Nope. This was all about global risk. You've got escalating tensions in West Asia, serious concerns about the Strait of Hormuz, which is a critical channel for oil, and that pushed crude prices over $100 a barrel. Now, for a country like India, which imports most of its oil, that's a massive economic shock. It weakens the rupee, and it completely spooks investors. And as this analyst points out, it really all boils down to a fresh layer of uncertainty. And if there's one thing the market absolutely hates, it's uncertainty. So a disruption happening thousands of miles away creates this ripple effect that washes up right here on Dalal Street. It's a global gamble, and we're all involuntarily a part of it. But, some gambles aren't left to chance or markets. Some are deliberate long-term plays designed to shape the future itself. And that brings us to our final story. And this might just be the biggest gamble of them all, a political one. Today, in Parliament, the government took a huge step toward fulfilling a promise that's been around for a long, long time. In doing so, they've placed a massive bet on the future structure of Indian democracy. And when I say massive, I mean it. The scale of this bet is just staggering. To make the one-third reservation for women a reality, the new amendment bill proposes increasing the number of seats in the Lok Sabha from 543 all the way up to 850. Let that sink in. This isn't just a minor tweak, it's a fundamental reshaping of the entire House. But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. This bet has a very, very long timeline. It's not as simple as just passing a bill and it's done. No way. As you can see, it requires a whole chain of events. First, a new census has to be conducted. Then, a massive nationwide exercise to redraw every single constituency boundary has to happen. So while the political wager was officially placed today, the actual payout, that's still years, maybe even a decade down the road. So let's just take a step back. We've seen three incredibly different kinds of bets just from today's news. A personal one that ended in absolute tragedy, a global one that shook our entire economy, and a political one that is set to define a generation. And when you put it all together, it really all leads to one big central question. In a world that's just filled with these high-stakes gambles, from our own personal finances to the global markets to the very future of our nation, how do we decide which bets are actually worth making? How do we, as individuals and as a whole society, figure out which risks are necessary, which ones are just reckless, and which ones are truly, truly worth taking for a better future? So what do we take away from a day like this? That risk is everywhere. In our wallets, in our laws, in the most desperate choices we make. And maybe there's no easy answer for which bets are worth it. But it also makes you wonder, is there another way to live? A different kind of bet to make? And that brings us to our next story, a look at a completely different path. The journey of Thomas Merton, who went from a restless, rebellious youth to a global voice for peace. A different kind of gamble altogether.